Welcome back to Clout 941. We're here with guest attorney Derek Byrd, and now we get to the big topic at hand, the whole mess involving Officer Chris Childers. This week we heard a lot from the city manager, Robert Bartoletta. Here's my take on this. SPD has had a confrontational sort of attitude with Bartoletta from day one. All of the budget cuts that took effect, cutting of officers, cutting of pay increases, they have been aggressive in fighting back. They've gone to community members, to businesses, and had them put signs in their windows supporting him. You know, they've really caused Bartoletta a lot of headaches, and to me, this is a little bit of Bartoletta striking back. That's kind of my take on it, in putting the chief on paid administrative leave, but I guess he asked for it, though, didn't he? What do you think, Derek?
You know, it's tough because people like Chief Abbet, you know, and I don't know Chief Abbet on a personal level like you do, but from what I know from people who know him, he's a likable guy. The problem is that this is such a cluster, and this is such a morale-damaging event where people in the public, the average person who reads the newspaper, just can't believe it. I mean, they really can't believe that, you know, number one, people don't like to read about excessive force by police officers, but that happened. There's no question. It was on video. One of our local police officers kicked and beat really an unarmed suspect. Okay, that's not supposed to happen, but it did, and it happens all the time. It's what happens after that that is just incredibly bizarre. I mean, almost something like a novel, where the chief summons, you know, and he has Sergeant Castro doing a criminal investigation or an IA investigation on the case, and then has him go out to Mr. Perez, the suspect or the subject, and to offer him, for all intents and purposes, a bribe of $400. I mean, think about $400. You know, from what I understand, when Castro showed up, Perez said, "I don't have $400." Like, he actually thought he had to pay the police to get out of this problem. And then for them to say, "No, we're going to give you $400, and we're going to drive you to the bank so you can cash the check," it's just, it even shocks me, and I'm pretty hard to shock when it comes to things like this. And I just think the bottom line is, unfortunately for Chief Abbet, because he's in a position of power, because he's in a position of trust, people need to have respect for the police department. And because of what's happened, I don't think he has any other choice but to resign. I think the adamant...
You feel that strongly about it, that he should resign, he should go as police chief?
Yeah, I think that if he wanted to do a service to the other police officers, all the good police officers out there, and do a service to the city, I think the best thing for him to do is resign. You know, there are likable leaders that make mistakes. I mean, Elliot Spitzer was well liked. He made a mistake. He resigns. You know, I mean, that's what you do. And I don't think that he's derelict in his duties necessarily. I just think that this is such a black eye that he has. If he really wanted to do the right thing, I think the right thing for him to do is to resign.
You feel the error was that big in magnitude, where actually the guy who's been police chief for 6 or 7, 8 years maybe should step down. You feel that strongly about it?
I just think he has to do it in order to, you know, for all the other policemen out there and police women out there, and for the city of Sarasota to have trust in their leaders. You have to have trust in your leaders. I mean, here Chief Abbet condoned paying off. I mean, to me, it's witness tampering, frankly. He condoned going out to a witness in a criminal investigation, because remember, the person who's beat up, you know, the suspect, is a victim. You know, he's a victim. He's been a victim of excessive force. There's a criminal investigation going on against one of Chief Abbet's officers, and his answer for that was to send someone out and pay this guy $400, and to say, if he doesn't have a ride to the bank, drive him to the bank. That, it's just, to me, it's reprehensible. And not to mention, after the fact, when Chief Abbet went in front of the media to apologize, his apology was really a half apology. I mean, he indicated to the media, and he certainly insinuated that he did not send Castro on the first visit with the $400. Well, then the Sarasota Herald does a public records request, and they see an email where it's very clear that that was the instructions. So not only did he do the first thing wrong, he then was misleading in his apology. I just don't think he can recover from this. I mean, it's too big in Sarasota. Again, people have to have respect for their leaders, and the chief of police is held to a higher standard. And that standard is high enough, for me at least, to say he should do the right thing and resign.
You know, you hear a lot of things compared to Watergate. Everything's gate this, gate that. But, you know, this is strikingly similar to Watergate in that the Watergate case involved a bunch of somewhat low-level guys who happened to work for the president and went off and did something stupid on their own, you know, did a criminal act, and the person who was in charge of the organization that they worked for, instead of just saying, firing those guys and telling the press about it and saying what you did was stupid, probably nothing would have happened. But instead, what Richard Nixon tried to do when he found out it was people that worked for him did something stupid was immediately try to cover things up and hide things, and the cover-up, as they said, was worse than the crime. I mean, can you compare it to Watergate?
Yeah, Abbott's a veteran cop. You know, he was at NYPD for 22 years. He's been here for 6 years. I'm sure his heart's in the right place, and his instincts were to protect his own. You know, his instincts were to try to protect his own, and I get that. It's a thin blue line. You know, I understand that these guys go through quite a bit. The problem is that's not the problem, okay? You know, you can pat him on the back in a local police benevolent association by saying, hey, you stuck up for your guys. The problem is public confidence, and the problem is public trust. And when the public thinks the chief of police has done something maybe even illegal, you know, the confidence erodes. And when the confidence erodes, it's a problem universally. I mean, you know, and I just think that that's too much of a problem for him to overcome.
You told us what you think should happen. What do you think will happen? What do you think the city commission is going to do?
Well, if there's an independent investigation, which they're calling for, and the independent investigation is done properly and thoroughly, I think they're going to find that he is at fault here. And at the very least, he's going to get a suspension without pay, and possibly even a dismissal.
All right, Derek, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate you having us as a
thanks
guest.
for having me.
All right, we only got a few seconds left, so we don't really have time to play our little cartoon or our music, but you know, we will make Chief Abbet this week our Weasel of the Week, which is tough. Chief Abbott's a guy that I like a whole lot. I like him personally. I think he's been an excellent chief, but we have no choice. This is the second time since we've done this show in about 10 months where I had to make a friend of mine Weasel of the Week, and we've got to do it this week. We'll see you next week on Clout 941.
You ready? Let's go! Yeah. For those of you sporting the power